be consistent, apply positive neglect, and watch your situation grow. Top of a team, Coach E, and it's time to leverage your life. Now, if you don't know, your life is your business. And if you're not living the life that you desire and deserve, it's because you're not minding your business. And if you're not minding your business, it may be because you don't know what your business is. And that's okay. You're in the right place. Now, a couple of years back, I bought my wife a BMW X5. I bought it from a private owner. So, I had to do my research and my digging to make sure everything was cool. People post pictures on different sites and they make everything look good. But when you get there, you see stuff that they can't show or they don't want to show in the picture. So, I had to make sure when I got there, I checked for leaks. But, it's a way around that because a person could just move the car somewhere else and have it sit or have something sitting under the car. And when you get there, they can remove that. So that's kind of, it's not so much foolproof, but, you still have to check. And sometimes you could just bring your mechanic and let them run through it, put a diagnostic machine on there just to make sure everything is good. At the time, I didn't have a mechanic, so I just came by myself and I did the regular routine stuff that my wife's father told me about because he was a mechanic. So I would go and I would check the transmission fluid, make sure it didn't smell like a burning smell, to make sure the transmission wasn't going out. I made sure the fluids in the oil was cool, didn't look too dirty. I made sure all the electrical work, power windows, the AC, the heat, the radio, it had a sunroof, wanted to make sure that worked. I just wanted to make sure everything worked and open like it was supposed to. And pretty much everything was like it was supposed to be. Interior was nice. It was leather. It had two-toned. The car was about 5 years old, but it was in good condition. Didn't have over 75,000 miles, so I was happy about that. And outside paint job looked immaculate. So I was like, okay, cool. We got one. We good. So he also provided the Carfax, which was important because I wanted to make sure I didn't have a salvage title or anything of that nature. So everything checked out perfect. So, we happy. We take the car back to the house. We rolled it around for a little bit, but then we eventually park it. And I come out the next day, take the car out, and I see a little drip of oil underneath the car. So I'm like, okay, I didn't see this last time, but I mean, it's a small drip and it wasn't continuous. So I'm like, okay, it's no big deal. Maybe it was just some shit because it didn't move for a while and it just had some little oil residue underneath and it had to get it off while we drove it. So I didn't pay no mind to it. Go out the next day, come back, and it's a new drip. So I'm like, okay, this ain't no one-time thing. This is something that's, it's dripping oil. And so I was trying to find out, well, even though it's dripping oil, it's not dripping continuously. So what's the issue? And after driving it for a while, what I found out was that every time I drove the car and parked it, that's when the oil would drip. But after it would drip so much, then it would stop. And it wouldn't drip a lot, like 4 or 5 drops of oil and then stop. So it was a very, very slow leak, a very slow leak. Something that you would not even pay no mind to, especially if you parked your car on blacktop. But I was parking it on my driveway so I can see, and I don't see the little oil spots. So I realized, like, okay, it's not dripping continuously. It's only doing it after I've driven, and it'll do it 1 or 2 times, then it's done. So, I asked a couple of people about it, and they were suggesting that, with some bad advice, that I don't even worry about it. Like if it's not a major leak, just ignore it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's gonna cost, and you probably can get through it. Just make sure you check your oil levels and just keep everything cool. So I took that bad advice because I didn't want to pay for no repairs. I just got the car. I just spent some money on it. I didn't want to do nothing else. So I took that advice and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna worry about it. Well, over time, obviously, because it's a leak, it got worse and it got worse and it got worse. And it got to the point where that leak was so bad that I would have to put about 2 quarts of oil into the vehicle like every 2 weeks just to make sure it didn't run out of oil. Now, again, it still wasn't a continuous leak. I would drive it and then it would leak after I parked it and then it would stop. But that leak started getting worse and worse and worse. So now I'm like, you know what? I done pushed it back as long as I can. I need to go get this fixed. I take it to a dealer that I found out, or not a dealer, but I take it to a mechanic that I can trust and that was going to be honest with me. And he hit me with the bad news. The repairs for this leak was going to cost about the same amount that I paid for the damn truck. Now, obviously, I was devastated because it's like, okay, I haven't even had this car that long, and now I got to pay exactly what I paid for the car. Do I want to do that? You know what I'm saying? But the whole time in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, damn, if I would have just repaired the leak in the beginning, I wouldn't have to deal with this right now. If I would have just dealt with it when it was just a drip, I wouldn't have to worry about right now when it's pouring out. So that neglect cost me. On the other end, I remember wanting to save some money, and I seen an idea on Instagram that I decided I wanted to go with. So I seen these group of guys, they had got together and they each saved $20 a day for a year. And then they took that money, they pulled it in and they bought some real estate. So I told myself, I'm like, yeah, $20 a day ain't too bad. I'm making good money. I get paid every day. So I can save $20 a day, and I probably fuck off $20 a day on bullshit snacks, eating out, while I'm in the field or whatever. So instead of doing that, let me just save it. And I didn't want to focus on what I would have. I didn't want to count the money. So I got one of those 5-gallon drums. Oh, not drums, but one of those 5-gallon water containers that you use to fill up your water dispenser. And I marked on it, $20 savings. And the reason why I use that container is because once you put the money in, you can't get it out. And the only way to get it out is to cut the container open. So I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to have any temptation to mess with the money. Even though, again, of course, I can just always cut it open and get it. But I want to discourage myself as much as possible from touching the money. So I used that container and I just started putting $20 in every day. Now, I really was feeling like this ain't finna do shit. It's not really a lot of money. Almost like what, $100, $140 a week. It's nothing. It's insignificant. But I ignored those thoughts in my head, and I neglected those thoughts in my head that was telling me that what I was doing was insignificant, and I just kept putting that $20 in and putting that $20 in. And it became like second nature to do it. I wouldn't even think about it. Every time I got paid, every time I got my money, I say, boom, put that $20 in and put it to the side. Well, after doing that for a year, I had a little over $7,000 saved on the side of my own personal savings of 10% of everything that I received. And I said to myself, damn, just that easily, just by disciplining myself with just that little bit that I thought was insignificant, I was able to get $7,000 put to the side that I can do and I can use for pretty much anything. I mean, that could help me a lot. I mean, when you have a family or when you want to make a purchase, a nice little $7,000 is good to do a lot of things. I could have paid down some debt, anything. Now, in both cases, there was neglect. In the first case, there was neglect of a future problem that if I didn't handle now would cost me in the end. In the second case, there was neglect of a future benefit that if I just ignored it was going to accumulate to something that was going to benefit me in the end. What I'm trying to say is that the principle works in both ways. Whether you neglect a problem now that is small, or you neglect what you're doing with the small steps you're taking towards your big goals that are small, either way it goes, it's going to accumulate to something big. So as the Bible says, do not despise the day of small beginnings. A lot of us don't like small beginnings. I know I'm one of them people that feel like if it's not a big enough step, I don't want to take it. But I just gave you 2 examples of where taking small steps can lead to a bigger situation on the negative side and on the positive side, because the law works both ways. The law is going to work regardless, that if you start with something, no matter how small, and you consistently put in and neglect it. Now, I know that word neglect may sound or have a negative connotation, but in this situation, I'm showing you that there's a positive connotation to neglect and a negative connotation to neglect. When I neglected my mind telling me that this $20 every day wasn't nothing and allow myself not to focus on the amount and just do it, I was able to accumulate $7,000 of extra money on the side. When I neglected to pay attention and to tend to a small, tiny, insignificant leak, it turned into a major leak that was going to cost me the same amount as my vehicle cost me. What kind of neglect are you applying right now? In your goal to get to where you want to get to and to become what you want to become, what is the small details that you are neglecting? Because on the negative side, those details might bite you in the ass at the end. But on the positive side, those details, those small details, those small efforts that you think are not doing anything can accumulate and to turn into something major. Don't despise small beginnings. Don't despise the fact that you're only taking one step now. Because if you keep on putting that foot in front of the other, they say a journey of 1,000 steps starts with one. And every day you're taking one step, every day you're closer and you're cutting and you're chipping away at them 1,000 steps. Now you got 900 more left. Now you got 800 more left. Now you got 700 more left. And then once you reach that half mark, you halfway there. And it's all about perspective. Like they say, is the cup half full or half empty? You determine that. That's in your hands. But in order to get to that halfway mark, you got to take the first step. And in order to be consistent, you can't despise how small you start. Think about it like this. An apple tree can be created off of one apple seed. But once that apple seed is planted, that tree can produce, let's just say, 100 apples. And each apple can have at least 3 seeds in it. So you got 100 apples in a tree from one seed, and each apple has 3 seeds. That's 300 seeds. If you plant each of those seeds, and let's say each of them seeds become a tree, that's 300 trees. Now you got 300 trees, and they each have 100 apples each. Then each apples have at least 3 seeds. You see how it compounds and compounds to where you go from one tree to an orchard off of one seed. One small seed that could fit on the tip of your finger can turn into an orchard. But if you look at that seed that's insignificant and say, I ain't going to even plant it, I ain't going to even waste my time, it's too small, then you missed out on your orchard. Do not despise small beginnings. Everything starts small that becomes big. Everything. Put in the work, be consistent, apply positive neglect, and watch your situation grow.